Hello there, I'm John, and I hope you're ready for a tropical adventure as today we're going to be visiting professional artist and DSWF Wildlife Artist of the Year finalist Susan Clare, live from a jungle somewhere in Jamaica, where she's going to be helping us paint a vibrant wild banana flower, probably grabbed from one of her trees just outside in her garden. But before we journey to the heart of Jamaica, a quick shout out to our most recent patrons for joining our community. So thanks go to Jean Kidwell, Karine Braggard, Barb Carriger and Stephanie Griffin. Thank you so much. And no matter what level of patron you are, you'll now get automatic entry to all of these art webinars throughout the month. Simply visit our live events page on our website to see what shows are coming up, including live art gallery tours and on location plein airs. So can't be bad. This particular art class is a shorter prelude to Susan's 2 to 3 hour workshop webinar in a few weeks' time and gives you a good taster of some of the things she's going to be teaching in greater depth at the full event. If this is your first time joining us, although you can pick up a tip or two from just watching, all of our shows are about practical learning, and this class is no different as you can speed paint along. It's fast and furious but complements the longer workshop where you can then dig deeper into the techniques and pick up even more tips for improving your art. So without further ado, let's zoom to Susan now. Can't wait for this one. As we journey to Jamaica, the recommended materials for painting along can be found on our website. Simply search for the class on our video library page and click the button Class Info. You can also find a direct link to our video library in the description below. Oh my goodness, look at this, in the middle of nowhere. I think I can just see her on the balcony and she's gone in now. Hello, Susan.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Very
Good.
well.
Well, it's really you are in the middle of nowhere, it appears to me, and it's great to be hosting you for the first time. And what an amazingly remote place you live. Is it as peaceful and serene as it looks?
It is. I mean, that's exactly why I wanted to live here. And we have a little community of neighbours that all feel the same way. So we're all very respectful of keeping quiet and enjoying the nature sounds.
Yeah, yeah, it looks amazing. And how long does it take to get to a local town for groceries and things?
Everything is about half an hour away, 25
Okay.
minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have one of these sort of off-road jeeps or something? Or yes.
We try to be very eco-conscious up here, but that's the one thing that you can't really do without.
Yeah, that is lovely. And what do you feel has inspired you most about Jamaica with your art?
There's three areas of things, really. The first is my garden, and I started painting in my neighbour's garden. I expect she's listening today. And that was really where I started, with the wild and great big energetic flowers and lots of vibrant life. Then throwback to my first career, which was in scuba diving. I love painting the sea and underwater creatures. And then the third thing is I've found that character portraits from the local community can be really inspiring too.
Yeah,
So
wow,
that's
it just looks an amazing place. Anyway, and maybe at some point we'll have a little glimpse of the outside. But before we do, just a quick 30-second word on how today's live event's going to work. So first of all, we're going to walk through the preparation, and this will include talking about the process, which might include sketching, theory, maybe applying the first layers of paint. Then we're going to take the opportunity to see some examples of Susan's previous works of art for a bit of inspiration while the first part dries, and also discuss her upcoming 2 to 3 hour workshop webinar, which is happening next month. And then finally, we'll complete the tutorial, after which, whether you're watching live or watching the recording, you can share what you've done on our Facebook post or Instagram page for comments and feedback. So, with introductions done, let's get back to Susan and start putting paint to paper. So today we're doing a banana flower, and you've got it behind you, I see, and you
right.
wanted to show people how tall the leaves grow. It's incredible.
I have to actually move the camera for you,
Yeah.
but these, I have a selection of them here. These heliconias, or wild bananas, come in a lot of different colours and sizes, but these ones are quite prolific in my garden.
Wow.
And so the flowers are down there, and as we go up, you can see that the leaves go way on up. I have quite a high ceiling, and they're still going on up there.
That is incredible. That is incredible. And while you mention about your garden, maybe if I could take the opportunity of asking you just to show a little glimpse of your balcony. Now, at the workshop, the longer workshop, we're going to actually have a proper tour of this place. But you can see, oh look, the hammock. You've got to have a hammock in a hot climb, and you can just see the trees, and oh, it looks like an amazing view as well. But we're going to have a proper tour at the workshop, which will be amazing. I'll love to see that. So we're going to start by painting this this wild banana flower, and you've got the photo, a reference photo, even though you've got the real one to the left of you, although I would imagine most people don't have a wild banana flower in front of them. So hopefully everybody's printed out the photo reference, which looks something like this. And how do you want people to start? Over to you.
Okay, so you'll notice the reference picture is not particularly beautiful because this was taken at a workshop where we were painting from the live flower. So that's why we're going to paint it without the background that's in the picture. So one of the things I wanted to show you the scale for is to understand that even if we paint our entire, we want the flower to be large and bold in the picture. So we want to fill up the page with the flower, and even then it still probably will be smaller than real life. So the idea is to do a quick sketch, and we want to make sure that we're getting our flower to be big on the page. One of the things I'd like you to look at to start with is that these florets are really just interlinked triangles, and they're quite easy to once you realize that that's the shape they are. Just to make sure that we don't go right off the page with it, I want you to estimate the point at which it needs to stop at the top, and then below that we're going to sort of estimate where that thicker base is at the bottom. And then coming up, we just want to, it doesn't matter, thankfully flowers are quite forgiving. If you don't get exactly the right shape, it won't matter, but we want it to be big and bold, and if this first one goes off the page, that's absolutely fine. So we want to have enough space in the subject matter to get lots of good color in there, and without putting in too much details, because we don't want a lot of messy pencil on our watercolor paper. We just want to make sure that we're getting in a good amount of volume that we can fill in with good color. And of course the vibrancy and the sort of wild it's like a sort of a, you know, a complete,
like a triffid or something like that, isn't it? Sort of,
it's like just total wildlife.
Yes, yeah.
Being vibrant and going off on its own. So we want to get that feeling across.
Are these things with the texture of these flowers? Are they quite waxy, a bit like a banana?
That's exactly what they're like. They are called waxy tropicals, and you can buy them in a florist shop, and they'll last for weeks in England if you buy them. There we've got our little pointer there to notice where we're getting up to. This last section is not quite a triangle because the two bud pieces are overlapping more, but sort of like a pair of scissors at the end there. And that's really all the drawing that we need to do. Okay, I enclosed a picture of the painting I'd done before. And in this one, you'll notice that the stalk goes way up behind the flower. And so we have to invent that a little bit. This one got cut off when we were actually moving it around. As you've just seen, the the stalks go way up above behind the flowers. And that's one of the reasons we don't paint the leaves in with the flowers much, is because they're usually way above. So let's just invent this stalk going up there. If you can just scooch your...
I love the sound of the wildlife. I can hear the birds.
Okay.
It's so yeah, I know you're probably totally used to it, but it sounds totally alien to me. We're just at normal sort of
good.
little sparrows and blue tits out in the garden, you know, compared to those.
Well, they're probably not about sparrows and blue tits. They're banana quits and
yes, exactly, exactly.
Like that. But I'm glad you can hear them. It all adds to the ambience and the
it does. Yeah, it's great.
So having finished our quick sketch, the next thing to get our loosening up going is to really decide that we're allowed to play at this stage. So that's so important. All of my classes, I like people to be able to just let go and realize it's just all about having a bit of fun. So the first thing we're going to do is to splash some water on all over the painting. And I'm using this, you can use a 1-inch flat or something similar. And we're just going to make sure, I have a little tilt on my paper board. So I didn't mention I've taped down my painting paper because it's 140 grams, or sorry, 140 pounds, 300 grams. If you're using a heavier piece of paper, which I often do, I don't usually bother to tape it down. But we want to go over the whole surface a couple of times with a nice generous amount of water, with just a slight tilt on the page so that the eventual gravity will help us to flow down a bit. And while that's soaking in a bit, we're just using 5 colors today. We're not going to put all of them in the background, but I do like to have the same colors in my background as in the flower to some extent to get a nice harmony. So we've got French ultramarine as our blue, Windsor red, or you can use cadmium red, alizarin crimson for the further back sort of cooler area of reds, and then permanent sap green and a warm yellow. It can be cadmium yellow, something similar. So to start with, this flower, when I squint my eyes at it, I mostly see a sort of a yellow-orange base. So we're going to throw in some yellow to start with. And to accomplish that, we're going to use one of your largest rounds. And let's just mix down a puddle of yellow. Sorry, I had a bit of messy yellow that was getting all onto my paintbrush handles, so we'll just use that up. And lay your brush down and leave the puddle there and make the other puddles so they're ready to go. So I did ask you to have about 3 round brushes, and later on you'll see how we use them in close succession. But for this, I want you to just make a puddle of blue. So the French ultramarine blue is going to get made into a puddle maybe over here. And this, you don't want it very watery as much as a wash might usually be, because we're adding it into water that's already on the paper surface. That it needs to be quite generous so that you can dip into it. It's ready to go at quick notice. Okay, and we'll leave that one. And we want some green and probably some alizarin. So the permanent sap green, put that over here. Because you can use the wells in your palette itself. I just started on here, so I'll continue. And going back to, let's wash this one out. Trying not to wash out too much color. I hate to waste color like that. And a little bit of alizarin crimson can go over here in this corner. Adding some more water to that to make it flow better. Okay, and off we go. So what we're going to do is check that our paper surface is nice and wet still. If you're in a hot climate like I am, it dries up pretty fast.
I bet it does. I bet it does.
It's very variable because it can be enormously humid as well some days, and that can be confusing because it doesn't dry. So going in with our yellow first, we know we want a lot of yellow around the flower area. and we'll just throw some in all over the place. And a bit of spatter is always good. Then moving into sort of working from the top down, let's do a little bit of alizarin crimson. Don't want that to be ever so strong. It sort of gives that sort of almost sunsetty feeling to the thing without it being obvious. The other thing about this to remember, of course, is that watercolors always dry so much lighter than you think they're going to. So it may look a bit alarming at this stage. And you might be thinking, oh my goodness, I don't know about that. But it will dry softer. So the next thing to move down onto is some green. I'll use the same brush because one few green, one few. This just suggests that there might be other foliage, other things going on. Don't worry if you go through your subject matter. You'll see that actually this layer is going to dry a lot paler than you think. And it actually can be interesting to have some sort of slight echo of the lower layer poking through when it comes to painting your actual subject matter on the top. Touch of that in there. And then we'll move to the blues. Now this blue French ultramarine, as you probably know, is a granulating color. So we're putting this on last, and we won't want to be maneuvering it around once we've set it on there too much. So nice big brush strokes. This is like the shady undergrowth, the shadows between the greens that are lurking down in amongst the stems and the other things that are happening in the lower regions of where the plants are growing. So we're painting it as if it's growing in its natural habitat rather than thinking about it sitting in a pot on a veranda, which is where the photo was taken.
Yeah.
And we'll have some streaks of this up in the, like further back, distant suggestions of other stalks and stems and leaves. And of course, a bit of spatter. We need some blue spatter in there. A bit more shadowiness off towards that corner might be nice. And
is that a wind chime that I can hear in the background as well?
Yes, actually, is that annoying? I should have thought.
No, it's fine. It's okay. Yeah, it's nice. We've got the birds, the wind chime, and now a dog's decided to come into play as well. I mean, we've got every bit of animal and sound.
Okay, so we're just wiping off the excess moisture. I'm going to just tilt my painting a little so that you can encourage the running. That's what makes this so much fun, is the running around. You know, we're basically having fun and making a mess, aren't we?
And what's quite nice is if when you've done this, squint your eyes a little bit and you can see the main colours at work. Because as Susan said, it can look like a bit of a mess initially when you're looking at it properly focused. But if you squint, you can almost imagine the flowers and everything coming together, and that's obviously what we'll work on with the additional layers that we'll be doing in the second half.
One more thing that I'd love to add, just before we let this dry,
sure,
is rinse out one of your brushes, not too thoroughly, with some clean water, and just add a few taps of spatter of water, clean water, into maybe these solid blue areas. And that will just add some sparkles of light popping through as well. They do their own thing.
Lovely.
Once you've added that, you don't want to tilt it too much. Maybe can you see them appearing here and there? And that just adds that little magic touch.
Yes. Could you hold it up to the camera just slightly, just so that we can see if without tilting. Yes.
Yeah, you see them here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a nice effect. Brilliant. So ready for a short break?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. What a great first half, and hopefully you've been able to kind of create that collage of colour that's going on. But now, while we wait for that to dry, and I think it won't take very long for Susan's to dry in her climate, but maybe for you it might take a little bit longer. We'll now take this as an opportunity to have a look at some of Susan's previous art and works of art for a bit of inspiration. Because obviously in this shorter show anyway, we don't really have the chance to show what the artists are capable of. So this is a really nice bit. The nosy me comes out, really. So, Susan, what have you got? I can see you've just put some on the
Yeah, so I thought I'd show you some smaller pieces because they're easily shown in the camera range here. But some of these are pieces that I've painted as workshops with my own art club.
Oh, lovely.
Online art club as well. All of these are different. We do quite a lot of mixed media, watercolor and acrylics. This is in England, of course.
Yes, yeah. That looks familiar.
And in England, the Thames barge. And we try and mix up the subject matter according to what the members want to see. Another quick one there. This is one more of my own choosing. I've got quite a collection of turtle paintings.
Which looks a little familiar. We may be coming back to that in a few minutes.
That's actually not the one we're going to paint, but it's similar.
No, yeah.
Some of the acrylics I've done. There's a lovely bright hermit crab.
Oh, lovely.
We also
nice energy.
Yes, I think so. And these are some cocoa pods, which they also grow in my garden. And you can see it's quite a different type of technique with palette knife work and acrylic paint that's quite thick and impasto.
Lovely.
Cocoa pods on a wooden lignum vitae cutting board.
Lovely. And what sort of percentage of time do you paint between watercolor and acrylics?
We try to rotate it around evenly. So it's actually probably 2/3 watercolor because the mixed media ones tend to be watercolor with other little things thrown in like Inktense pencils or acrylic inks and things like that. So.
Right, yeah, great. And you've got a little plug where because you've written a book and I can see that there.
I didn't write it. I reconnected with an old friend from university days who is a doctor and well acclaimed, and in his professional life I'm sure he'd be quite shocked. Those people would be shocked to be knowing that he's writing silly poems for kids. But it's absolutely adorable poem in a kind of quirky rhyming style, and he asked me to do the illustrations, which I think he thought I might do 3, but we ended up this is our lockdown project. He was in Nottingham and I was here in Jamaica, but it kept us well entertained, and the communication back and forth really saved both of us our sanity, I think. It took me a while to realize that the book is actually, the story is set in my garden in Jamaica.
Oh, right, brilliant.
Picking up on little things that I said about the bats and the cave and all sorts of, the hummingbirds and stuff like that. So it was an absolute delight to collect reference material for the pictures. And some of them are available as prints too. And the book is for sale in England. My daughter has the pleasure of sending them all out.
Oh, she got the short straw on that one.
Yes.
That is brilliant. I love the fact that he thought you were just doing 3. That is that is so funny. Yes. And I can imagine being in lockdown and you're just going, oh god, yeah, this page could really do with another painting or something. That is brilliant. Oh, thank you for sharing that. That was lovely, and that book looked great. Those illustrations were fantastic, really colourful.
We're working on number 2. So
are you? Okay, brilliant. And
they're slightly environmental sort of oriented as well, and they're all printed with vegan inks and sustainable energy in Somerset.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, that's what a great story. I didn't know you could print with sustainable energy. Well, I guess if the energy's been sourced, it's good to be able to source for that. So that's good that you're mindful. Now, for those watching, let me know in the comments which painting stood out to you, what really resonated with you, what you liked about it, what you thought about the book. What a great project. And also, if you're watching this on YouTube and you're loving what we're doing today, we're both really appreciate you hitting the thumbs up. YouTube then recommends this show to more people, which helps us with our mission to inspire them to give art a try, young and old alike. Now what we'll do is go back to Susan and discuss what we're going to be covering in our longer workshop webinar. So what are we planning? I think there was a little hint given a bit earlier on with that turtle, but we're going to be doing something underwater, aren't we? There we go.
Yes. So it's a kind of paring down the complications of things, because underwater can be quite challenging. I think I was painting underwater paintings for about 10 years before I was satisfied with one of them. So I've sort of taken what I've learned and condensed it into simplifying the number of colors, so that your color scheme comes out looking harmonized. There's also, you'll be learning about how light reacts differently underwater. And if you are a diver, that'll make sense immediately to you. But if you're not, it's something that you can become aware of easily. So I'll teach you a few pointers that will make it look like you're underwater instead of just on land. And the other thing that we're going to do is to learn some of this scratching out technique. We're going to use a minimal amount of resist or masking fluid, and then use that to advantage to really keep it simple but effective. Sometimes masking fluid can look really overdone, I think. So
yeah. Oh no, that looks lovely. And yeah, some of the techniques then that you're going to do there.
Yes, this is quite important. The soft focus of the changing colours, so that it looks like it's distant. Underwater, everything 10 feet away looks like it's much further away on land, if you know what I mean, that you get that misty haziness to happen much sooner. So even if you're doing a photo or painting a photo that only has a depth of field of maybe 6 feet, you're still going to need to have those distance techniques within that range of distance.
No, that looks brilliant. It sounds really a lovely workshop, and obviously we're going to have the opportunity of, in part of the show, a little bit of a side tour, have a little look at the, because I'm quite nosy, as people that have followed me for a while love to just see the studio outside on the balcony, maybe go for a little walk out into the jungle, as long as the Wi-Fi will reach that far. We'll have to see. But now, as exactly.
I will also be sharing a great story about my goddaughter Anya, who works with turtles in Kefalonia.
Right.
And this reference photo actually is one that her boyfriend took in California, in the rescue centre. So.
Oh right, fantastic. Oh well, that's lovely. And do you get a lot of turtles in Jamaica? Are there a lot of turtles?
Yes, but turtles generally are protected worldwide because they're threatened. So there are efforts in Cayman, there's turtle farms in Cayman, but any place that you have a large population of people and they're quite hungry, you're going to find that the rules get bent. And that's the sad thing, is that, where do you put the priorities when you have a hungry population? It's very hard. But there are rules in place that say you mustn't eat turtles anymore, and you mustn't sell any jewelry made of real turtle shell, because that encourages people to go and capture them. So there are things looking up, but at the same time, there's always that balance of do you put people's welfare above the immediate environmental concerns? I think we have to, because in the long term we won't have any option.
No.
But
I know it's a worry, isn't it? Yeah. Let's not get down that rabbit hole. I think that could be we don't want to taint the show. Now the workshop sounds fantastic. It's going to be a really lovely journey, a fantastic painting along with somebody in Jamaica as well. So now the longer 2 to 3 hour workshop webinar is more immersive, as I've said before, and it gives you more time to explore and digest the techniques. We sometimes go a little bit off piste as well, so it's a lot more than this shorter show this glimpse that you're getting today. There are also opportunities to share your artwork along the way for real-time feedback, just like at a real on-site workshop. So if you want to join Susan and learn how to create this magical and tropical turtle, as well as have a short tour, it's taking place on Thursday the 7th of April at 3:30 UK time in the afternoon. Not quite sure whether the clocks will have changed by then, so do have a look on Google, because I think it will. If you can't make it, you also have the option of purchasing the video. We never publicly release our workshop videos on YouTube. They're exclusive for our paid audience or our patrons. Spaces are limited for the live event, and to book you can either click the YouTube pop-out link, which will appear hopefully just here, or you can visit our shopkeeparty.com website, and I'll share my screen and show you where to go to do it there. Head over to Shopkeep Arty. You click on the live events tab at the top in the menu. You can scroll down until you see that turtle, and then click on see details, and it then talks about the workshop, some of the things we've just covered, shows you the example painting, the reference paintings, and the various things that we'll send to you the day before the event. There's a fairly limited number of materials that are recommended, but not essential. If you do want to top up on anything, we've got a 10% off deal with Jackson's Art that ships globally as well. And then scroll up to the top, and there's the link for Susan's shop. Click over to there. Now, Susan has one of the very first artists to do this. We launch a free shop with all our artists when we feature them, and she's actually added some items that you can buy apart as well as her webinar, including the book. So you can have a look at those, and if you want to purchase the book or anything like that, you can do that on her shop. You can add the webinar or the webinar plus video at a discounted rate to the basket, and then check out. And although it's all in pounds, it converts to your local currency after checkout. If you do purchase the video in the future, you can come to our video library. You can search by artist, select Susan on there, and then literally you can have a look at the reference photos and the class info. You can purchase it if you haven't already, and then you can watch it. And on our video library, you can see all the different workshops and videos and recordings from all the artists that we've featured over the many years that we've been doing it. So hopefully that has been useful. In addition to all the other benefits, our patrons can also use a special link on our live events page for a 15% discount. So please visit our live events page on our website and follow the link there. Right, now it's time to get back to Susan for the second half of the tutorial as we start to bring this painting to life a little bit and add the additional layers. So I can see, I would imagine it's probably dried by now, Susan, am I right?
It's a little bit damp still, but okay. We'll carry on and see how it goes.
Well, if you want to use a hairdryer, you're more than welcome. If you've got a hairdryer,
yes, I would recommend that. If I didn't, well, I don't want to disrupt your. But yes, if you're at home, you can use a hairdryer to finish off.
No problem.
So at this point, this is where we're going to use a couple of different brushes in quick succession. So I wanted you to be able to have two brushes to load colour onto, one with yellow and one with your brighter red. Mine is actually Winsor red, but I think you can use cadmium red too. And so we want a thicker mixture now because we're adding, especially if your paper's still slightly damp, you want to make sure you're not adding a watery mixture into a wash that's already been laid down and is still damp. So we want it to be sort of single cream almost consistency. And similarly with the yellow, so I'm using quite a large brush there, which sheds a lot, but
now Victoria said, looking at the paintings that you showed, Victoria said loved the book and the hair. Louise said loved all the pictures, the book is lovely. So the book was getting some good plaudits there, so that's nice. Has it been quite a good seller on the where do you sell it? Do you sell it on Amazon or something like that, or?
No, sorry, we're not enamored of Amazon actually, but
no. With your environmental credentials, yeah, exactly.
We started with Kickstarter, And
Okay.
we raised the money to get the thing printed in the first place, luckily. And so that meant that we already had pre-sold quite a lot of copies. So I understand in the book world, there's a sort of a magic number of around 300, which is basically your family and friends. And if you go above that, there's a chance it might blossom. So we're at about the 350 mark right now. So we still have some first editions.
Yeah.
Our first edition run was 500 books, so if you do it quickly, you'll get a first edition.
Oh.
And, yeah. And then we have to decide from there whether it warrants taking it further.
Yeah. No, that's good.
So here we go. I've got 2 loaded brushes, and the idea is that I want to get that lovely soft fuzzy interchange when we look at the actual flower. Let's just have a look back at the reference picture for a second. You can see that there's no real hard line between the areas of yellow and the areas of red. And the interchange between them creates these lovely rich oranges too. So what I'm planning to do is enrich the yellow on top of what we've already laid down, and then stroke in the red so that it gives me a lovely fuzzy edge. And you need to have 2 loaded brushes ready to get that to happen. So with as few brush strokes as possible, that always helps to make things look really flowy and vibrant. Switching brushes, and I'm looking for the area of where the red is strongest. You're bound to get little dribbles and things happening that you didn't quite plan on. And that actually is one of the things that makes this magical. So don't worry if it goes further than you planned. Don't worry if you've got, we're going to put yellow over the whole of this. And you can see that I've got a big blue blob there. And in years gone past, I might have been a bit worried about that. But now I'm sort of thinking, actually, that's going to look quite interesting when I'm done. So the red coming on the lower portion. Try to keep your brush strokes simple. Just extend it a little bit further up there. Being aware that when you do lift the brush, if it's well loaded, you're going to get that sort of puddle effect. So you can work out where you need to lift the brush in order to minimize that if you want to. Also, with the little bit more of a tilt on the page, it would probably be easier to get it running down the length of the flower. Now we're getting to the point where I'm going to have to reload my brush. Now, if I make a connection between this yellow and that red, you can tell that that's going to flow down there. Now that might actually be quite interesting. So if we're brave, we might do that. Let's see. There we go. It'll take its time and run in there. I'm picking up a bit more red. It feels like the red's drying up on me a little bit, and we need a lot for this particular petal. Again, we've got that simplified triangle arrangement. Just neatening up that shape there, because there's kind of each of these florets, if you like, actually opens out. So there's a gap. If we were looking down into it, you'd see there's a gap there where the little actual flowers are that are very boring. They don't have much color at all, just greenish. So they all sit inside there. So these are like cups that hold water for them, and all sorts of wildlife can be found in there too. But because of that, there's sort of like a membrane, like thinner bit of yellow on the top edges that we can make a point of or not, up to us. Because I'm always thinking that when it's good. I have nothing against detailed paintings and, botanically accurate stuff. But if we're just trying to capture the essence and the energy of the painting, of the flower, then we don't want to labor over those things, because they have their place in botanical artwork, which is beautiful, but that's not what I'm trying to create. I'm more about when we squint our eyes and just get the feel of it, what is it we notice? And you probably can't notice all those little things. You can't take it all in at once. So therefore, don't labor over creating it. Let's have that connection down there a little bit more. And moving on, we're down to the larger pieces now. You might need to reload your yellow. It's quite a lot of yellow, and we want it to be rich. And the idea with this method is that we won't need to go back and do lots of layers or lots of extra strokes. We want it to be really vibrant with just these like two brush strokes per petal, really, isn't it?
There's so many paint manufacturers and brands and so many different types of yellow, but I was just thinking to myself, I don't think I've ever heard of a banana yellow. And I think it's obvious, surely. There should be a banana yellow.
Oh, but you're sadly used to one color bananas.
Yes. Oh, that's a good
10
point.
different varieties of bananas in Jamaica, and some of them pinkish. And it's because of the way supermarkets make it easy for them to import and have standards and things like that.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, we don't get the range of bananas that are available. And some of them taste amazing. Some taste more like apples and things.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. There are some that are only 3 inches long and they taste like honey.
Wow.
Okay, a bit more. Now this one obviously has more green in it. This is like the outer casing one, but we'll still start off with a good amount of yellow because there's yellow underlying the green too. Maybe leave a little bit. Now here is where we can come to our third brush, which you want to clean and then dab it off on the paper towel so that it's damp but not soaking. And then we'll just run it down the edge of the paint stroke we created so that we get a nice softening. Wash off any paint we've picked up, dab again. And same thing again. I want this to have that lovely light greenish yellow showing through in some portion. And then we'll go back to, we need to change to green, in fact. So one of your brushes, not the yellow probably, needs to be washed out and lift up green instead in a nice thick mixture like we just created for the other two colours. So permanent sap green. I didn't mention, but I pretty much use Winsor & Newton professional colours for everything I do, a few Daniel Smith colours. So the colours I've been quoting are all the Winsor & Newton professional watercolour range. That's my nice creamy level mixture. And for this now, I want to do the opposite side. If you have taped your painting onto a board that can move, I fully recommend turning it so that your hand can do this easily. And we want it darker here and lighter down there. So we may need to put some, got my dabbing, my cleaned brush with the fluid on it. I just want to make sure that this is still damp down here. So I'm adding a little bit of clean water into the area where I don't want to have strong green. So that when I add this now, trying not to put my hand on top of the rest of the work. Sometimes it's more important for the stroke to be confident than accurate. And just to tease this about a bit with the damp brush, okay? So we're moving the paint a little bit from where it landed and streaking it into that lighter area. You can, of course, turn your reference picture upside down while you do this, makes it a little bit easier. And up in this section is quite a dark section of green. I'm going to turn it the right way up again so it makes sense. adding a bit more green into the outer edge of this section of the leaflet, or floret, or whatever it's. I don't actually know the technical name for these. Maybe it's a sepal. And we have to do the same treatment now on the stem. Now, of course, the stem, if you're doing this at home, I'd recommend you let this dry before you attempt to do this on the stem, because we don't want it to run into these flowers which are standing in front of it. But you can see how that's going to work quite well. We'll just put a little bit of damp onto the area where we want it to stay light. And we're going to put the darker green to the outside and bring it so it just touches into the area we just wet, and then you'll get that lovely transfer of colour through. Same treatment on the other side. Remember, if your flowers are wet, don't make that connection with them. Leave a little gap. You can always fill it in later if needed, and it probably won't be needed. There's the other side of this, there's a kind of a split there where it allows the flower to come out of the stem. And going to lift up a bit of that green because we want the sense of this light section coming away straight up and going into the part of the stem that goes behind there. I took the green a bit too far over. We're going to be adding some darks on in a little while with some dry brush techniques. So if it doesn't look as dark as it should, that would be the reason. Now here, remember we have that light-ish edge on the membrane. I've got my dampening brush, and we'll just soften that edge there. Clean water, dab off, and soften the other side. And then we have to put in the dark green on the inner edge. Try to, if I need to rest my hand down, I need to do it on an area that's already quite dry. Make it connect with the part that's, bring that right through to there. We can soften that a little bit more. Make it a little bit more streaky. There we go. And further up, again, it's getting more light down in the depths here. It's in the jungly undergrowth, and further up there'll be more sunlight reaching both the flowers and the stems. So this is going to be a lighter green up here. In other words, more of the yellow showing through. So we'll just add the green onto the outer edges and streak that in gently with the clean brush, and suggesting that coming up on the inside here. Likewise, carrying that straight through, so we get the sense of the fact that those leaves are going to go way on up there, up to the sky. Softening with the dampened brush. Danger of that green invading my flower there, so just lift that while I can and get rid of that little gap there. Okay, that's kind of got the general bones of it in there. Now, another thing we can do is with the alizarin crimson, we can add some extra shadows into our flowers. Now that they have settled down a bit, you can see that this one's really quite pale. I don't want it to, you know the rule that once you've put the wash on, really you need to leave it until it's dry to put another glazing layer over. So either we need to wait till it's very dry to do that, or if we cut it early enough, we can put some more color in while it's still wet. And I'm going to gamble with the fact that maybe it's still wet. so that I can do this for you. And we're going to be adding now a rich layer of alizarin in certain parts of our flowers, the shadowier parts, the lower, where it's turning away from the sunshine, where the curves are creating more shadow. And so we'll just add this into, particularly the lower down petals need that extra layer of darkness in them, I think. And we can use that to create form too. If you take a bit of a closer look at the flowers themselves, you'll see that sometimes the dark colors, the darker reds are sort of where they are because they've got the stuff on the inside in that little pocket is showing through, and it creates sort of lumps and bumps that can be interpreted easier with the darker red color. Now you see I've switched down to a smaller brush, and I'm having to do a lot more brush strokes, which is not my favorite thing. I like to do it very smoothly with a larger brush. That's where it's gone. And I'm going to soften this edge so it still has a chance to do that flowing out thing. Just stretch that darker red a little bit further up. And we'll soften the interchange between the two reds here. Make it a little bit more streaky.
Now, just to let you know, we've probably got about 4 minutes.
Oh, 4 minutes, okay. Maybe we'll just add on a touch of dry brush so you can see how that would be creating.
It's amazing that time's just whizzed past in this.
Yeah. Okay, so I love to make my darks from all the colors I've already used, pretty much putting them together. So the green, the blue, and the alizarin crimson will be enough of a mixture there to create a lovely dark. And then not going to get it too accurate. To get the dry brush technique, we're going to squeeze out the bulk of the moisture from the back of the brush. And then it should be ready to just put on some little scratchy bits of detail, particularly on the stem. Now, this is not going to work great because the stem's very wet still, but using the side of the brush and some of the, we're looking for the texture that's kind of, you know, all the messy bits on the stalk itself and bits of dying foliage and stuff like that. And on the tips of all these flowers, there's usually a sort of drying up bit. It also just helps that little extra bit of depth of color, helps to bring a focus to those little ends and makes, it's like a finishing cap, I suppose, sort of makes sense of it. And let's do a little bit here. There's quite a lot of messy stuff on this older floret.
Ah, is that the word? Floret?
I think it might be, I'm not sure. I'm not pretending to be an expert. I should.
I think you almost got away with it until I drew everybody's attention to it. So I'm sorry about that if you were wrong. I'm sure we'll get the odd comment in saying we were right or wrong.
Okay, so yeah, I think that's sort of, I would have normally put more of the crimson into these two as well, get it a little bit more intense. I think that gives the right impression. You need a bit of dry brush on this, but it's too wet to put it on right now. Let's see, no. That's it, and some more streakiness in this one.
Yeah, so it's a lovely, an unusual subject, because I've never seen a plant like that before, so it's unusual. You know, it almost doesn't look real. So it was a really enjoyable hour, and I hope for everybody at home, I hope you've felt like you've had a lovely holiday to Jamaica for an hour. It's been, wasn't it lovely listening to all those bird sounds in the background? Absolutely fascinating. Lenny actually asked, would you put any more colour in the background?
No, I think it's cooked.
Yeah. But I
If you
guess
see
if you
something
were
that,
at the start, if you wanted to put more colour, possibly you
yeah,
could do so if
yeah, I
that was
would
your taste.
probably put it in the first beginning part. If you know, but sometimes it's hard to tell if you've got a new piece of paper, or you know, sometimes it's hard to tell how much you've actually created already.
Yeah.
And until it's really dry, and you see the balance with the foreground colours. But I think this one doesn't need any more for sure.
No.
If you see something very irregular, like perhaps you'd be upset that this is all blue and that's all yellow, you might want to just streak a couple of bits of blue through there to get a continuity going. But other than something minor like that, I would leave it. And usually if you start to mess with it, you get fussy, and then if you fix one thing, then there's 10 other things need fixing. So.
Yeah, it's never overwork. It's one of those common mistakes everybody makes. Now, we'd love to see how you got on, whether you were doing it during the class and painting along with Susan, or whether you're going to finish it just afterwards. Love to see what you've done. And obviously, as we near the end of the show, if you've got any words of thanks that you'd like me to pass on to Susan, please write them down for me now on the Q&A. Also, the post relating to this class so that you can share what you've done is already up on our Facebook page. So search for Shopkeep Arty on Facebook and you'll find it there, and literally just share your photo of your art so that Susan can have a look and I can make a few comments. And the description's also in the link below. Now, before I go back to Susan and read out the comments, I want to mention a special SKA first in April. We've got popular watercolour painter and Bob Ross fan David R. Smith flying in from Minnesota and joining me in central London, where we're going to be hosting a live plein air workshop to paint Tower Bridge, one of the most iconic UK landmarks. And you can either join us online for the live webinar where we're going to be, or you can actually join us in London itself. So visit our live events page on our website for more details and sign up while we've still got places, because we're limiting those places in London. Now, I'll go back to Susan and read out some of the comments. So Trina said, thank you, Susan and John. Barb said, wonderful technique. Thank you. Victoria said, lovely workshop. And what a treat to be in Jamaica. My husband has been to Rose Hall, great house. Is Susan near that? Are you near that, Susan?
Yes, it's just across the other side of town.
There we go.
Drive down the hill, another half hour across town.
Another half hour. Everything's another half hour.
Half an hour everywhere.
Susan said, I'm in the garden, so I have stereo bird sounds. Lovely session. Thanks, Susan. Great book too. Lenny said, thank you so much. Loved the demo. Bobby said, love the attitude to loose flower painting. Thanks for a fun session. Cherry said, thank you for today's class. I've been taking underwater video with a GoPro for painting from, so look forward to your words of wisdom. And Louise said, very interesting techniques and gorgeously colourful. So that was really lovely. Thank you so much for those nice comments. Certainly sounds like everyone had a great time, and always fascinating to be in another country, especially one that's so tropical. And if you're on YouTube, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Also, be sure to click the notifications bell when you subscribe, as it then actually notifies you when we launch a video with a new artist. Now, if you want to extend this last hour and pay Susan for a multi-hour workshop event, don't forget to sign up. Link is again in the description. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, it's obviously goodbye from me, but thank you so much for your time, generosity, and all the nature and wildlife that we've had as well. Thank you so much to Susan. Thanks, Susan.
Thanks, it's my absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And it wouldn't be complete, obviously, without a big round of applause. Thank you very much. And we'll finish on your painting. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, John. Thank you.